Hey students, Mr. Rich here. Tonight in our live stream, I'm going to talk about something that's really bigger than formulas, bigger than homework, bigger than your ACT or SAT test prep. What I'm talking about tonight are the stories that students tell themselves about math. Stories that might feel true, but they're just absolutely not true. I've taught math for years now, going back to my years at ITT Tech when I was teaching electronics, also at Stanton College Prep. And the biggest barrier to getting better at math that I have found with students is almost never the math itself. It's their belief about math that the students carry around with them. So tonight what I want to do is give you the 5 biggest lies that students believe about themselves in math, and then how to break those lies to try to get yourself to the next level in your math. And here's number 1. I'm not a math person. And that's really the most common and the most destructive myth that I have seen with my students. You've heard it from classmates, from your parents, maybe teachers who say, I'm not good at math, or my child's not good at math, or maybe it's something that you believe as well, that you're just not a math person. But here is the truth that's backed by lots of research. There is no such thing as a math person. There are only people who have practiced certain skills more than others. Think of math as not a talent, right? It's a trained ability. Think about learning a language or learning to drive. You weren't born really knowing how to do either one of those things. You learned through repetition, through practice, through feedback, making mistakes, and just putting in time. And now, if you are someone who knows how to drive a car, you can probably drive and not really even think about too much about what you're doing. You just know how to do it. But you certainly did not start out that way. And math really works in the same way. So when students say, I'm not a math person, what they usually mean is that, number one, I haven't practiced enough yet, or I haven't been taught the way that I learn best in whatever the topic is in math, or I'm comparing myself to someone who has had a head start above myself. So your brain, though, is built to grow stronger as you struggle, right? So that is really how we learn, is by struggling and straining to achieve. Every time you push yourself through a math problem that you don't understand, you're literally rewiring those pathways that makes the next problem easier. So the struggle is worth it. You just have to know the pathway to get past the struggle. That is, the resources to use so that you can get to the next level. So the truth is, really, you don't need to be born a math person. In fact, no one's really born being a math person. You become one by showing up consistently and putting in the hard work and the repetition. Okay, second lie. If I don't get something at first fast, it means that I'm bad at math. And this is what I would call the speed myth. Somewhere along the way, students get this idea that the best math students understand everything instantly when they are presented with new ideas, and that's just not true. Fast thinking and deep thinking are not the same thing. Some of the strongest math students I've ever had in my high school math classes are slow, careful thinkers. They take extra time to think about a problem. They check their steps. They don't panic when they don't get things right away. I often tell students that when they get into higher level math, like into Algebra 2, APRCalc, they've learned the easy stuff at that point, and most of the stuff isn't going to come right away, especially when you learn new topics. You will not get it right away. It's going to take some time. So you don't want to panic when you don't get something right away. And what the psychology tells us is this, as it pertains to math. Speed is not intelligence. Persistence is intelligence. Sticking with something until you learn it, that's the payoff. And here's what math tells us. Understanding slowly is still understanding. So the amount of time it takes you to understand a new concept isn't really what's important. And you don't want to compare yourself to somebody else who seems to get things much faster. No, the understanding is what's important, not how quickly you come to your understanding. So if you do need more time when you're trying to learn a new topic, it means that your brain is functioning, right? Is doing what it's supposed to do. It means you're building real understanding, not memorizing shortcuts. And it means that you're doing math exactly the way that it's supposed to be done. In other words, you're doing the right thing if it does take you more time. So the truth is that combats this lie about if I don't get it fast, it means I'm bad at math. If you're struggling at first, it doesn't make you bad at math. It makes you normal. Okay. That's the truth that counters that lie. All right. The third lie that I want to talk about is that I should already know this topic. This one shows up the moment that students will hit, say, Algebra 2 or pre-calc, AP Calc, or even when they start getting into SAT prep. They see something that they don't remember from last year or the year before, and then they panic. But here's the reality. Math is a staircase, right? Every single person forgets steps along the way. It's normal. If you haven't seen a skill for months, there's no doubt it's going to be rusty. This isn't just math. This is things in general in life. If we don't use something, we are going to lose it to some degree and we'll need to build it back up. Oftentimes you might have been taught things too quickly, like your teacher didn't have time to spend enough time for it to really sink in deep into your brain. And so therefore, it's going to be very easy for it to leave your mind if you haven't exercised that in a while. That happens a lot in geometry, right? A lot of the things that you learn in geometry, you don't retain because you don't use them in your follow-up math classes. But then when you get to, say, ACT math or SAT math prep, then you got to go back and maybe relearn some of those geometry concepts. But that is definitely normal, and it does not mean that you're bad at math. So the truth is really simple. You're allowed to not know something, okay? It's just because you may have learned it in the past doesn't mean that you're supposed to retain all of it. Good math students aren't the ones who know everything. They're the ones who say, let me go back and review what I think I learned before, and let me try to get this right and refresh myself, and then keep drilling on that topic. All right, lie number 4 is this. And boy, I see this a lot in my students when I was teaching in the classroom. If I ask questions, people will think I'm dumb. Well, that belief will kill your confidence for sure. Because if you're thinking that I don't know this and I probably shouldn't ask questions because I might myself think I'm dumb and others might think I'm dumb. Now, could others think that you're dumb? It's possible, but not really likely. Right? More than likely, if you've heard this before from your teachers, that if you have a question, there are other people in the room who probably have that same question. But really, who cares what people think in the classroom? What's important is, what are your goals? If you're trying to learn this math because you're trying to do well on the SAT and to go into college, into a chosen career, then it doesn't matter what other people think. Now, I know when I was in school, I had to battle this a lot. I never wanted to raise my hand for fear of saying the wrong thing or appearing silly to my teacher or to my other students. So I probably lived most of my educational career afraid to ask questions. But I just am going to ask you to try to overcome that fear. And don't worry about thinking that you're going to look clueless in front of other people. I would say that you have to view yourself as looking more committed than other people if you're the one that's going to raise your hand and they're not. Just view yourself as you're doing it because you are committed to learning and that you are not afraid if other people think that you look foolish. Overcome that fear. One thing, though, I would say that if you can't overcome that fear and then you didn't ask the question that you wanted to ask, then you need to go to the next step, which is ask the teacher independently, privately. Don't be afraid to go to your teacher after class or maybe drop by their classroom after school to ask them a question or two to get clarification. So questions here are not a sign that you are behind. They are a sign that you want to get ahead. Always keep that in mind. Lie number 5. One bad test means I'm bad at math. And that's the lie that can keep students stuck, especially when they start a class. They start off and they maybe get their first test score back and they didn't get the score that they wanted to get. You miss questions, you bomb a quiz, and then suddenly you decide that you're just not cut out for math or for this particular math class. But I want you to think of it more like sports or music. Does a bad game define your athletic ability? Did a bad rehearsal in, say, on the music side, does that define what your talent is? And of course it doesn't. You can take a look at the best athletes, world-class athletes, and they can have a terrible game. They could miss many shots in basketball. They could commit errors in baseball. Whatever it is, we have to allow ourselves that just sometimes we're going to have a bad day, a bad game. It's the same in math. You could have a bad test. But math really is the same way as it is in sports and in music. One test isn't just a diagnosis of your overall condition in math. It's really just data that you use to move forward. So when you do bomb a test, that's where you have to say, okay, I'm going to use the test results to learn from those mistakes. I'm going to find out where I was strong, what I didn't miss on the math test, where am I shaky, where are some things that I need to build up, where can I grow next. If you treat your test as a judgment, you're going to shrink. If you treat your test as feedback that you've gotten from your teacher, that's going to help you really turn the tables and make it a growing experience rather than a shrinking experience. So the truth is, one test measures a moment. It doesn't test your potential. Use your test as data to make corrections, not just on the topic that you studied that you didn't do well on the test, but also take a look at maybe your preparation for that test and how you need to alter your preparation moving forward on subsequent tests. So those are the 5 lies. And if you're honest, you probably have believed at least one of them at some time, maybe all 5 of them. Some of you may believe 1 or 2 of those even right now as I'm speaking. But remember that math success is not about being quick. It's not about being perfect. It's not about being born gifted in a certain way. It's about showing up. It's about asking questions. It's about practicing deliberately. It's about learning from mistakes. And really, ultimately, it's about refusing to let old stories define you. You are capable of more than you think. And if you rewrite these 5 lies that I've given you into the truths really that's behind them, you'll be amazed at how far you can go in math. And not just really in math, but in anything in life. Okay. And I don't have any questions to work for tonight since most of my students have already started their Christmas break. I want to wish all of you a great break, and I will be having another session next Sunday, and then we'll resume back after the first